See, I think where I went wrong, Tatiana, is I lived it out, and it subtly exposed the people who say they do the things but don't do the things, right? And then the fact that I did it for free, right? I think that really created problems for people in the prison industry that we know is a profit machine. Peeling back that, I call it peeling back the onion. Right on the surface, you're like, I keep using, and it keeps leading me to commit crimes in which I keep getting arrested, right? Well, why are you using? Well, I want to feel. Apparently, I was volunteering too much for my level of volunteerism, and so they indicted me and said, that I quote unquote shouldn't be able to be as successful helping others with the level of disability that I have.
Oh, this is Tatiana Santoyo with Texas Prisons Alliance, and welcome back. Today, we have a very special guest. This episode is dedicated to our veterans who are all incarcerated. This episode is called Beyond the Uniform, Veteran Reentry, Healing, and Hope. We have a very special guest, Jeremy Harrell. He is the founder of Veterans Club, Inc. Welcome, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I thank you for joining us today. Well, I wanted us to go ahead and bring a real conversation here and some stories in regards to the impact of incarceration as well as reentry. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, I'm the founder and strategic advisor for Veterans Club Incorporated. And I've been doing that, been working with veterans in all walks of life since about 2019. And, I recognize the need for, the programs that we offer for veterans. And I did some prison ministry, right? Because I'm also a chaplain. And so I would go into different facilities and I would work with the incarcerated veterans and even partnered with Kentucky's largest jail in Louisville, Kentucky. We have our own program called Operation Valor, and they have a special dorm, a little bit thicker mattresses, a big TV for classes, right? But I was always looking out for them. And it was interesting because not too long after that, I myself got justice impacted, right? So I was indicted by the federal government for a single charge of theft of government benefits, and the reason why is because I'm a disabled veteran, permanently and totally disabled by the VA due to my injuries in Iraq, and so while that was happening, I decided that I wanted to use the time that I had to give back to other veterans, to help veterans who were suffering with PTSD and other mental health issues. And I wanted to do that as a volunteer. And my wife is a licensed clinical social worker, right? So she is in that realm as well. So we decided to start a nonprofit to do that. Well, apparently, I was volunteering too much for my level of volunteerism. And so they indicted me and said, that I quote unquote shouldn't be able to be as successful helping others with the level of disability that I have. And I don't buy into that, right? I believe that you can be disabled and you can be productive. And so, but really, I think there's more to it than that. Really, I think it's because of the success and the way that I would expose the systemic failures and how we're not doing enough for our veterans, especially our incarcerated veterans. And so this happened in 2023, and I was sentenced in December of 2024 after a 5-day trial in August. And I served 6 months at FCI Ashland in Kentucky, and then I had 6 months home confinement, and then of course supervised probation. So never in a million years, right? When I'm doing this work and I'm going in and I'm talking to these folks, that I thought I would be on that side of the table. And in fact, I remember my last day doing that before that happened, talking to the guys, and they said, Jeremy, we really appreciate you coming in here and showing love and teaching us things. It's just really hard if you've never been on this side, right? If you've never been incarcerated. And I hadn't until that day. I mean, my record, I had one speeding ticket in 2008. I had never been in any kind of, and then, here we are. And so, of course, I'm still fighting that case, right? There's still a lot of appeals. And of course, you can imagine there's a lot going on, but that just goes to show, that anybody at any time can be a victim of the judicial system because it's not fair, right? We know that for a fact. And so yeah, so not only have I been involved heavily in working with prisons and institutions going in and helping, I've actually lived there, and I continue that work within the prison system on a federal level, and was able to mentor men and just help and take everything that I taught on the outside to the inside, and I'm not bitter. I mean, I think we can get on the other side of this, but I was able to go in and help some men that maybe not otherwise would have been exposed to the things that we do to help. And so, God does things, and I don't question what He does. I just follow. And so, yeah,
And this all happened in the state of Kentucky.
yeah, study Kentucky. Yeah, yeah. It's really weird, but we served thousands of veterans all over the country. I have a director of operations who actually kind of runs the organization. I'm more like the face in the story,
Okay.
right? This was a high profile case. I've done a lot of, I've become a subject matter expert, Fox, CNN, News Nation, History Channel. We've done documentaries, and it just seemed like the better I got at it, and the way that I would go about creating change, especially for those who are justice impacted, the more of a target I became. And so then all of a sudden, I just never knew in a million years in America, right, that someone could volunteer too much. But that's. I mean, there's they paint a picture that's different than that, right? But the reality is that that's what it was. I was told I was permanently and totally disabled for an anxiety disorder and some physical things, but I don't have an intellectual disorder, right? I am able to think and talk. They brought up a lot of the media that I've done. They bring up a lot of the public speaking. Really, they used everything good that I've done to help others against me as evidence to prosecute me. So I do understand, as we're sitting here talking about veterans who are incarcerated,
Yeah.
and when they see this episode, I want them to know that I do recognize more than ever how unfair the judicial system can be, and how much of a target that we can all be at some point throughout that process.
Definitely, for sure. So my question to you is, because of so much media that you had, because of the good that you were doing, do you think they purposely, I don't want to say purposely, but between you and I, purposely
Yeah.
tried to make an example out of you?
I think so, 100%. Right? They knew that if they did that to me, that it would get a headline. They knew that it would, and the investigators investigating me knew that that would be a feather in a cap. My lawyers said it this way: that they're treating my client like the John Gotti of the veteran community, when in fact this guy has done nothing but selflessly, day in and day out, help people. And again, I've never taken anything from my nonprofit. The nonprofit was never in question. I didn't even use gas or mileage. Like I literally did this because I love the people that we serve. I
Yes.
have a heart for those. I'm an advocate for the underdog, right? Because I've been the underdog, and they needed someone that was willing to actually fight for them, not just walk up to a podium and and say the romantic things, the sexy things that get the attention, but to actually live that out. See, I think where I went wrong, Tatiana, is I lived it out, and it's subtly exposed the people who say they do the things but don't do the things, right? And then the fact that I did it for free, right? I think that really created problems for people in the prison industry that we know is a profit machine.
Oh,
And then you
yes.
got this guy who's making an impact by himself, going around and creating positive change and seeing people leave prison and stay out of prison. Because what we did is when we went into jails and prisons, once they got out, they come to our headquarters, and we would get them work immediately. We would get them clothes immediately. We would get them housing immediately. And so yeah, for some reason, somebody somewhere that's more powerful than me didn't like that, and so here we are.
Wow. So
Yeah.
prior to this, what had inspired you to serve those justice impacted individuals?
Well, a lot of reasons. 57%, especially veterans. We're talking veterans. 57% of veterans, and I think it's fair to say that non-veterans, that the folks who are incarcerated is because there's some mental health challenges there, or there's some unaddressed trauma, right? And I always say trauma is the real gateway drug, right? And I just don't like it. I've experienced trauma, not just from combat, but also from a child, right? I grew up in an environment that poverty, neglect, drugs and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, anything you can imagine. And so I understand how that impacts. And I have cousins in my family who, I went to the military. They went to jail as a result of that. And so I've always had a heart to fight for the folks that are often forgotten about. And I just wanted to make sure that they knew that they're not forgotten about. In fact, they're a priority for me, even to this day, right? Even when the second I walked into that facility, um, I immediately started, asking how I could help these guys. And so I would preach because we didn't have in Ashland, they didn't have a chaplain. And I am a certified chaplain, right? So I would preach Sunday services, but also I would hold a Bible study 3 times a week for men who were interested. And because there was no NA or AA in that federal institution, um, I would meet with those guys as well and talk through some substance abuse things and try to help them, get better. So yeah,
Interesting. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
took a negative and turned it kind of into a pop, pretty much into a positive inside there as well.
I mean, my whole life, and that's what I want these folks to understand is you're not the result of your charge. You are redeemed. God has created you in His image, and not to get too churchy, but the reality is He doesn't just love some people. He loves all of His people, right? And everybody has an opportunity to get better. Everybody has an opportunity to do the right thing, and there's no use in being weighed down by what people said about you in the past. It's about focusing in the future. And so, my thought is for my own self, right? And for, because I could have easily become bitter. I could have easily said, you know what, if helping people is going to cost me this and I'm, then I'm just going to back away from that. But instead, it really inspired me to do more. And I just, it's the same reason I joined the military. I don't like bullies, right? And I wanted to do something where I could protect people. And now I'm just doing it in a different way. But yeah, the inspiration is still there, and I very much think that all this did is add a next chapter to my story. It's given me, obviously, it's built resilience. Obviously, it's tested me in ways that maybe otherwise I wouldn't have been tested. It helped me learn to appreciate exactly what the men used to tell me when I would go to these facilities. Jeremy, I know you mean well, and we love that you come here. It's just that until you've lived this, it's very hard to explain. And I recognized that within the first week myself, how you become a number when they would call my number. Here I am, a highly successful founder and CEO of an organization, right? And then now I'm 846-846-510, right? And it's just it's insane to me how they can take someone who has so much more to offer and just reduce them down to a number. And so that was my first kind of eye-opening experience to going, wait a minute, like these are fathers, they're husbands, they're uncles, they're brothers, and their grandfathers. They're more than that number that they wear on their ID. And so that's, I mean, and in reality, I think God showed me what it was really like on the other side of the wall. So
Wow, that is a heck of a story so far, Jeremy. It really
yeah,
is because
yeah,
you would
yeah,
never think by volunteer. I mean, I volunteer,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and usually the
yeah,
volunteers here that get in trouble are, obviously for doing illegal things, bringing in
mhm,
contraband, but
yeah.
never for over volunteering. So
Yeah, well, their theory is that the way that I was rated is how do they put it, you know the service connected disabilities kept me from doing a traditional 9 to 5 job, right? But they thought, and they really just based it on media and success that way, right? That if you can do that, that you can work a normal job. But the reality is there's so much miscommunication about disability and the way disabilities work. Like especially the ones that I have, one being an anxiety disorder. It's different. Say I worked at Ford Motor Company, right? It's different if I go into Ford Motor Company. I have an evaluator. I have this I have to be here at this certain time. I can only miss certain amount of days. Well, with this organization, this nonprofit, because I hired a director of operations because I knew that I couldn't do that every day because of my limitations.
Hmm.
Well, I had a choice. If I felt like I could go do that day, then I would. If I didn't, then I wouldn't. Well, I didn't lose a job, or I didn't have an evaluator. It was a controlled environment that my wife and I created, to give back. When I mean, of course, she doesn't have the disabilities I do, but whenever I could, I would. Well, they didn't care about the nuances of that and the ambiguity of that. It just was better for them, and it looked better in their press release to say something different. Um, but I'm lucky to know that so many supporters around the country recognize what really happened. And again, I've already forgiven those folks, and I'm just going to turn this around, and I'm going to use it to continue to do what we're doing right now today, to talk
Exactly.
to the men that are still there, that may feel like they don't have hope, may feel like they don't have a future. I'm here to say that you absolutely can, and it starts with you, and it starts with you right there in that place that you are, right there in that moment. You don't start when you leave, you start while you're there. And you can. I always would tell the guys in there, you can turn this into your own personal boot camp, right? Because I told them, when I'm out here doing these things, I don't have the opportunity kind of to be selfish in a way where I could really focus on me. I have 4 kids. They're young adults now. I have a wife. I have an organization. I didn't get a chance to really focus on myself with growth. Well, they have that. I know it's not the way that they wanted it. I get that, right? But it's looking at it in a positive way to say, wait a minute. Like, I'm going to use the time that I have to make myself a better version of me so that I can hit the ground running, and I can be there for my family and my children, or whatever it is that they live for, right? I can do that and be productive doing it.
Definitely. So, one of the things that many veterans experience is the difficulty of transitioning back into
Hmm.
civilian life. So, from the outside, people always usually assume once a veteran comes home, everything's going to go back to normal.
Hmm.
But many of them, the transition is very complicated for them.
Yes.
Um, what do you think could help them transition back?
Well,
Veterans, specifically. Yeah.
veterans specifically, well, I think the foundation, you have to develop some level of a support system. And I know some people have more than others, and that breaks my heart, right? But if you don't have someone within your family that can support you, find a group or a place to go where there's folks who have been through the same things you have. But I just think establishing a support system is primary, and
Mhm.
then creating a timeline for yourself, and creating, I know it's cliche, everybody uses the phrase smart goals, right? But they're successful for a reason, right? Is to really use them and be real specific about what you want to do, and understand. And I think this is hard, especially if you've been in for a long time. It's hard, whether, and here's the crazy thing, Tatiana, is whether you're in the military or in prison, there's still kind of institutionalized part of that, right? Because even in the military, you have all this structure, and you have all these orders, and you wear these uniforms, and you do. Well, there's a lot of similarities there, but it's about, having a support system. It's about, surrounding yourself with the people that will help move the needle forward, not people who can potentially take you back to a place that you've promised that you wouldn't go again, right? And to try to find organizations that offer education and job training. I think those are important, and I think it's important to try to do. And I understand the limitations of technology. In fact, I was surprised what you told me about the tablets. In federal prison, you can buy tablets, but you can't access anything as far as online, or any of that. So
Wow.
I'm
That'd be
glad
pretty
that,
cool.
like, yeah, I
Great over
wish they
here.
would. I wish they would. I mean, I didn't buy one because I'm not going to pay that much for something I can only listen to music on. Um, but like what they're able to do in the state system is really incredible. And so to use those resources to start again, to create some people like to say a business plan, but create a life plan. What is it that you want to accomplish? How do you think you need to do it? What stands in the way of that? What are your obstacles, and who are people that can help you overcome it? And I think that's the first step to really getting your feet under you.
Definitely. So Todd, let's talk about Veterans Club Inc.
Yeah, yeah,
What tell us a little bit about it.
yeah.
What do you offer?
Well, so here's how it started. It started as a private Facebook group, right? And my plan is like as I'm going through the healing process, right? Because I still have to go and seek treatment for traumatic brain injury and things like that. But as I'm going through the healing process at these different programs, I'm noticing that all these veterans are saying, well, I don't necessarily miss like all the bureaucracy of the job, right? But I do miss the brotherhood and sisterhood
Mhm.
of being in camaraderie with one another. So I thought, well, there's no reason we can't have that just because we don't wear the uniform anymore. And so essentially that's how Veterans Club was designed, was just really to get, it's just funny now to think about it, like 5 or 6 people together once a month to hang out and have our families meet each other and support each other.
Okay, so it was like a hangout.
It was like a hangout. It was like a social group, right? And then it just blew up and turned into one of the top 5 fastest growing nonprofits in the country because it was filling a need that sometimes we overlook, right? Because everything's clinical or everything's medicinal. But in reality, like sometimes we just need connection. Like as humans, connections is important. I know people like to say, I want to stand on my own 2 feet. I don't need anybody, that kind of thing. But in reality, you'll find that you're healthier when you have people. Now, whether it's 2 people or 20 people, but so that's what we try to recreate. So now we've helped thousands of veterans all over the country through we have an equine facilitated mentoring program where we use horses to help veterans overcome trauma and abuse and substance use and things of that nature. And then we have what we call a resilient mind program where we partnered with the NFL quarterback Russell Wilson, his brother, to put together some tools to help people achieve the goals that they've always wanted to before all the stuff got in the way, right?
Mhm.
So we help them overcome the hard stuff, right? And then once we feel like, and they feel like they're ready to move on to do what they intended to do, then we link them up with different mentors, leaders in the community who can help them achieve, whether it's owning a business, whether it's getting in better shape, or whether it's being a better father or mother. We connect them with experts in the field to help lead them and get them there and create a plan for them. And then, of course, we do a lot of connection events where we have camaraderie and coffee, where Black Rifle Coffee will send us coffee and we'll have coffee meetups. That's kind of like we call that the entry level part of what we do. It's easy. You go in there, you drink a cup of coffee, you meet people, and then we have an Operation Jeep Build program, and that's where we teach veterans how to do automotive repair and body work and things that they can tangibly do to earn a living. But at the same time, they're taking these Jeeps that we get donated, they're rebuilding them into these off-road machines, and then we all go out as families on trails and let them ride on the trails with the Jeep. And the good news is if they break the Jeep, that's the program, right? We fix it. And so we what's cool about that is we eat food out on these trails, and we just really connect with families. So we're very family oriented. I believe that if we help veterans, we need to help their spouses as well, because they're part of the struggle as well. And so those are just those are the main things that we do. And of course we do monthly cookouts. We do a lot of suicide prevention training. We do a lot of networking events. We do a lot, believe it or not, I don't know how, but we do a lot of real estate stuff, right? We have a lot of realtors who come in and do networking and things like that. We help.
I'm a realtor.
Oh, are you?
I
Okay, yeah.
am.
So
Yeah. I was like, what?
yeah, so we help veterans like use their VA home loan benefit and know what that looks like, and we also make sure that we protect them from predatory lending and things like that. And so all that, I mean, anything that we can do, honestly, we do. But those are our main programs. What we're most known for is the horses. Everybody loves the
I
horses.
saw
Yeah.
something like that on your website. Anything for the incarcerated individuals.
Yeah. So again, we go in to these facilities, and we teach life skill classes. I do for those who are interested. I obviously do some biblical teaching if they're interested in that, and then we share resources, and then we try to partner with the jails and prisons for when these folks get out, that they come directly to our headquarters, and we kind of set them down, and we have case managers who will sit down and say, okay, what's your situation? What is it that you need the most right now? And then we sort of kind of, we have this huge kind of clothing closet upstairs in our headquarters, and food pantry. And then, of course, we have employers who are willing to hire folks. And we just try to put them through this whole kind of list, kind of like a triage. What do you need right now? What do you need? You need housing. So we'll call Salvation Army, or one of the local organizations here who help, and we can get them. We have great relationships. We can get them in immediately. Generally, if they have a family, of course, we work with ones who are open to families. Work, and sometimes it depends on how quickly. We can obviously get them traditional jobs, but in the meantime, we have folks who need help for the day, right? Who pay by the day, just to kind of get a little bit of money in their pocket right away. And of course, we give them food, and we connect them to mental health resources. We partner with organization called Life in Motion, who offers mental health to veterans. They're very specific to veterans. In fact, the owner is a veteran, and also the owner was a retired correctional officer,
Oh,
and then his wife, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, she also worked in the jail as a therapist. So it's like what we're trying to do is have these wraparound services where we can take care of all these folks in house, and they're always just really shocked at how much we're able to do in a half a day there. But we're just trying to make sure that they're set up for success, because, as you know, they often aren't. I mean, I know if I didn't have the family, I mean, there was nobody waiting for me when I left, right? And so, yeah. So I mean, we just want to make sure that they know, first, the foundation is that we love you, right? We don't care what you're charged. We don't care what you did yesterday.
yeah.
We care about, we love you right now, and we're going to try to make sure that whatever it is, I don't need to remind you of what you did, because you just spent time in a place where every day you woke up, you were reminded. But what we want to do is show you what you can do, and what you're able to do, and what you may not even know you're able to do yet, but we're going to show you that you can. And that's how it starts with love, and then it goes on with resource, and it goes on with some assistance, and goes on with education, and just all the things someone needs to have a good life out here.
Yeah, completely. Do you work with any out of state prisons?
Yeah, we're not limited to Kentucky. I'll go anywhere. I just hadn't yet, just because we were just that part of our organization. We were actually just scaling, right? But the program we have with the jail in Louisville is the first of its kind, right? Where a nonprofit organization comes in and has a whole dorm, and has certain programming. Like, I brought in the VA to help with VA benefits, right? Because folks who are incarcerated, they can get their VA benefits now. They can only get a maximum of 10% while they're in, but the second they get out, they get whatever their percentage is. But at least I think, I don't know, 10%, maybe a couple $100. I know that don't sound like a lot, but when you're living off commissary,
No,
um,
no, for sure.
that,
Because here
yeah,
in the state
yeah,
of Texas, even when you work, you don't get paid for it. I know there's some states where incarcerated
yeah.
individuals work, they get paid $1 or something. They get nothing here. Absolutely
That's
nothing.
Well, I didn't know that. That's wild. I know in the federal system, I mean, you don't get much. You get maybe 40 cents
Oh no,
a
not over
day
here.
or something like that.
Nothing.
Yeah, that I don't see. That bothers me, because that's almost, almost slavery in a sense, right? When you look at it that way.
Your words, not mine. But yes, we're on the right
Yeah,
path. Yes.
yeah. I mean, come on. These are human beings,
Right.
and it would be a crime anywhere else. So why would it not be a crime for the system there? So looks like we got some work to do in Texas. You know what I mean? I am connected to Texas. I go to San Antonio.
Really?
Uh, yeah, a couple times. Well, it's called Junction, but I got to go to San Antonio to get to Junction. It's just a little town. And what we do is we have, it's like, we teach biblical aspects to trauma, and we have veterans and first responders from all over the country come out to this ranch and stay there for a week. And we teach about marriage, we teach about money and possessions, we teach about discipline and forgiveness and character, and important things like that. So I love Texas, by the way. If I didn't live in Kentucky, I would live in Texas, although it's a little hot there. Um,
A little bit.
I just love it for what it, I always say, like you see more Texas flags in Texas than you do American flags, you know?
Really do. I'm from California, and trust me, yes, I was like, "Man,
Yeah.
I've never been in a state where they
They're
just
so prideful.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, yes, very, very prideful, and it's a good thing. It's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it is. I think we'd all be good if we all had that sense of pride. But yeah, so I'm always open, and we're definitely, we're careful with what we do just because we want to do it right. But we are looking to expand to other states. I mean, I'd go if for example, I just got on a board um, for an organization that's based out of Beaumont, Texas, and what they do is they offer scholarships to children of the incarcerated,
really?
and they do a lot of scholarships, and they also, what the other thing they do is for folks getting out, reentering society, they actually pay for them to get a welding certificate or carpentry, not just, I mean, like the whole trade school. They take care of that. It's not just a little training here and there, but they actually take care of that, and it's ran by a former warden of USP Beaumont. He spent 30 years in BOP. So, with that said, I didn't know how they were going to, look at my situation, but it hadn't been a problem. So I just got on that board. So I'll be in Texas periodically anyway. So yeah,
My wheels are turning. So would you be willing
yeah,
to come and talk to some of the vets and some of the units? So we here at Texas Prisons Alliance,
yeah.
we have a veterans division where we provide resources, but we also serve as an outside sponsor. So what
Okay,
does that entail? It's kind of like we hold their donations specifically for this unit and their veterans.
okay,
They want to plan for Memorial Day. We're kind of like the middleman between the warden because it's easier for us to contact the warden than it is
right,
for them, and they're at the unit. We plan
right.
things for them. We'll order it for them. We'll take it to them. We go to their meetings and we bring guest speakers. But you're telling me that you did some like veterans marriage, and my wheel was turning as to doing some
Yeah,
veterans marriage seminar for them,
yeah,
and maybe possibly coming to speak to the vets of the units that
yeah.
we sponsor. Would you be willing to do that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah. I
Wonderful.
mean, I would love to help in any way that I can. It I remember, being there. You can feel it's weird. You're surrounded by so many people, but yet you often feel lonely, right? And some of these guys, they lose connection with the people they love, or you can imagine like the marital strain for those who are married, and one person's incarcerated, and the spouse is at home managing the kids and doing everything. You can have, and so it's important. I think, in my opinion, based on what I've seen and experienced, if we can keep married people married, well, that reduces a lot of extra friction and stress,
Yeah,
right? It's when that falls apart that it exasperates everything, right? And someone could lose hope. And so that's important to me. And it's weird because I go around, and I would ask, some of these other organizations, like, what do you think about me? Well, it's a personal thing. Well, not actually. I mean, it has a lot to do with recidivism, has a lot to do with how people are going to be able to get on their feet when they get out. I mean,
or yes, you're
if you
right.
get a divorce, and let's just say a big topic, child support is adding up while you're there, right? And then you get out, and before you can even find a place to live, or be able to put clothes on your body, you're already in the hole, right? And we know that some of that's going to be inevitable, but if we can somehow help families communicate better and more effectively while they're apart and stay together, well, that I'd rather someone get out and go straight to their home with their wife and kids, or husband and kids, than to be dealing with that when they leave.
Definitely. And
Does
for
that
the
make sense?
veterans, not only dealing with that stress of the marriage, I
Yeah.
think also
Mm.
dealing with their issues that they have aside from that. So that's even more
Yes.
difficult.
Well, that's another thing. Like, we're not good, veterans especially. We're not good at saying that we need help. I mean, you're discouraged from doing that when you serve. For example, one of our key phrases, embrace the suck, right? Meaning that, if you go to the doctor while you're in, at least while I was in, of course, that seems like it's been forever ago. I mean, that was a bad thing. Like you were looked down upon. They would call you things like, to go to the doctor in the military is called sick call. They would call, just like it is kind of in
Yeah.
institutions, but they would call you a sick call bandit, right? Or you're trying to get out of work, or you're trying to get out of training. And so what happens is everybody just stops doing that, and they just suffer with whatever it is, whether it's mental or physical.
Yeah.
And the greatest service that I ever given to myself, Tatiana, was looking in the mirror and say, listen, you need help. You need to talk to somebody who can help you, because you can't do it by yourself. And then once that happened, this transition happened to where I was able to get to a point, not where I'm totally healed, right? Because you can't erase memories, but I can get to a place where I can look at another guy that suffered like me and say, hey, this is what helped, or hey, this is what didn't help. Look where I failed. I don't want you to fail. This is what there's just a lot to be done there, as far as like recognizing that, again, the number, I think it's even higher now, but this was about a year ago. 57% of incarcerated veterans have some sort of unaddressed mental health challenge, whether it's or trauma from combat, trauma from childhood, because there's a high percentage of folks who join the military who come from troubled backgrounds, or broken homes, or broken families. Because for me, it was my only way out. Like, I couldn't pay for school. I didn't have no money. My grades weren't good because I was worried about where I was going to live. So I didn't. So what's the next best thing, right? To get out of that environment and to feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself, and to kind of redeem all that. Well, I'll go to the military and I'll make everybody proud, right? And I'll create my own life, and that's beautiful. But you still got to deal with that stuff, because it's going to eventually come to fruition later on down the road.
You're right. And it's one thing that I tell my vets, and I gave a testimony one time where I have two boys,
Okay. Yeah.
and they wanted to. I mean, I have the utmost respect for veterans, but you see those movies, right? About
Yeah.
how they come back, really in bad shape, and
Yeah.
I would not allow them to. I'm a tiger mom. I'm a
Yeah.
tiger. I'm a tiger mom,
Yeah.
and I would not allow them to join the military. I said, you know what? I'm going to tell them. I'm going to get a note from the doctor and say that you have flat feet. And they're like, what? And I said, I'm going to say, yeah. And then I'm going to get another doctor to say something. Well, you're my only son, so you can't go. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'll find some excuse, but you're not going. And I wouldn't allow them to go. And I appreciate the fact that they respect, because basically they could have done what they wanted, but
Right. Right.
but
But
they
they
didn't.
respect you.
But
Yeah.
here I am. And I have the utmost respect for the veterans, and I feel like they're very forgotten. They're
Mm.
very forgotten. And as it is, and especially the ones that are even incarcerated, which is even
100%. Yeah.
definitely. So my question to you is, how do you
Yeah.
define healing for veterans?
I think it's very subjective to each individual person. I mean, I think so it's two-sided. I think two things can be true at the same time. There are a lot of similarities in the issues that we have in the veteran community, but there also can be very detailed. I always say, like, I understand how you feel, just my details are different, right? Kind of how and I think healing is whatever creates and allows you to be the best version of yourself. So if, for example, if trauma of any kind is keeping you from, doing what you've always dreamed of doing, or achieving goals, or to be a better father, better mother, or to even while you're in to complete programming, to be a good model inmate, whatever it is. If you can't do that on your own, well, then I think healing should be involved and when you're able to do that, and not perfectly, I think that needs to be said too. Healing is not perfection, right? It's about winning more than you lose, but whenever you're able to do the things that you need to do to be successful and to thrive, I think that's healing. Because when you can't do those, it's generally because you're still dealing with what someone told you were, or what happened in your life, or something that's just really pulling you back. And so whenever we talk to veterans, whether incarcerated or not, we always say, what does it look like for you to be healed? What does it look like for you to feel like you have your life together? And you'd be surprised at the different responses. But overall, everybody wants the same thing. They want safety, they want prosperity, they want family and connection, and they want to produce, and have mission purpose. And our job is to help them achieve all those things. And again, whether you're incarcerated or not, and you can
Mhm.
absolutely do those. I mean, there's things to be done while you're there that you can get the ball rolling. So people would ask me, they're like, well, what can you do in prison? I'm like, well, it's the ultimate time to work on yourself. It's where you really have the time to sit there and do an inventory and go, well, wait a minute, like, how do I stop this from happening twice? Or what is it that keeps making me do this? Like, you keep peeling back that, I call it peeling back the onion. Right on the surface, you're like, I keep using, and it keeps leading me to commit crimes in which I keep getting arrested. Right. Well, why are you using? Well, I want to feel good. It usually stops right there. Right. But then if you peel back again, why do you think you need to do that to feel good? Then all of a sudden the real conversations start. Well, when I was a kid, I was abused and I was told that I'd be nothing and I could and I would never amount to anything. Oh, okay. So that's why you need something to
Mhm.
fulfill that hole, that void in your life. Well, let's start right there, right? Let's start with, well, let me remind you of who you are. Not just what I say, but who God says you are, right? Um, and then we start there. And then we start the process, whatever it looks like. Sometimes it's a couple weeks, and sometimes it's a couple. I mean, we have a guy that we work with that we've been working with for 5 years now, and he has now been able to um, pull his family back together and redevelop relationships with his daughters and his kids, and so sometimes it's faster for others than. But what I want people to know, our organization, we're here for the long haul. I always tell people, like, I want to. If you're battling in the trench, I want to be in the trench with you. I'm not the kind of leader that's going to be telling everybody what to do and looking up from a 30,000 square foot view. Like, if you're in the trenches, I'm going to be in the trenches. And I think that's what they respected so much about me. That's why we had such good success, and why we had people you know, um, who keep coming back, because they know that when I say, because their kids call me Uncle Jeremy, right? And
Mhm.
and when they come into the barn to work with the horses, I ask them, how's your daughter Sarah? I know she was having a hard time with school, and they're just, you remember that? Well, yeah, it matters to me. You matter to me. Your daughter matters to me. And I think that's the difference, right? I'm not checking boxes for grants,
Mhm.
right? I feel like if however successful God wants us to be financially, He'll provide that. Nobody can outgive Him.
Mhm.
So I don't worry too much about that. It's for
Mhm.
me, whether we help one person or 1,000, that one person matters. You know, every you would think, when you think about that number, well, who cares about the one? Well, if you're the one, you know how important it is for someone to care about you. And so that's kind of how we operate, one veteran at a time, no matter your circumstance. We're here for you.
Okay. Do you think that it is important for veterans to be around other veterans? And if so, why?
I think it's extremely important. I mean, I think foundationally, that's why Veterans Club becomes successful. It wasn't because I'm some special flower, right? It was because being in the room with others who understand what you're going through, and you can talk about it and not be looked at funny, right? If you're in a room, I'll just use this example. It's a little bit, it's a tough situation, but you know oftentimes you walk into a room full of veterans, you'll hear them say, yeah, I remember when my buddy got blew up, like it's the way it smelled, right? Now you say that in a room in a coffee shop somewhere around people, well, they're going to give you the kind of stink eye, you know what I mean? Like, or at least they're going to be like, well, that's inappropriate. But that's a real thing. If this person's having that thought, that memory, and it's bothering them, well, they can say that in a room full of, and not everybody has that story, but they can say that in a room full of vets, and we understand it, and we can say, oh man, yeah, I know that. Or you'll hear five other guys or women go, yeah, I remember that too, right? And then that's how that connection. But I think it's imperative, especially for veterans, to be in community with other veterans. It doesn't have to be 100 people. It can be two or three or however many you want. But I think it's critical. Yeah,
That they stick together. It's like
stick
a support
together.
system, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the "I got your six," right? That's the thing that we say, meaning I got your back, and so
Yeah.
whenever we're going through something, we need each other to lift us up sometime, right? And so that's why I think
Definitely.
that's important. Yeah.
Definitely. What message would you give a veteran who feels hopeless right now?
You know, I smile because I know that they're not really, and that the sky's the limit on what they can do. And I would just say that even though you feel that emotion, right, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a fact, right? And it's absolutely okay to feel that in that moment, but don't live there, right? If you feel it and whatever made you feel it, let's address the root cause, right? See, a lot of times we focus on symptoms, we address symptoms, but we never get to the root cause. And I'd rather a veteran, not, for example, when you think about medication and things. Well, why do that for 20 years if we can really get to the bottom of it? So, if there's a veteran, and I felt, I'm going to be transparent here. There were a lot of times, a lot of nights in prison that I felt helpless,
Mhm.
right? That they put me in a world in which I couldn't get myself out of. You can't use your intelligence to get out of it. It's not practical. It's not common sense. You have no control over anything. But I would just say that you may feel helpless in that moment, but you're not. You're not helpless. And I would like the opportunity, to connect with some of these folks, and to show them how they can, know that is a lie. That's the lie that we tell ourselves. But absolutely, they can overcome that feeling. Yeah.
Definitely. One of the most powerful parts of your story is that you've taken your experiences and you've turned them into a purpose.
Yeah.
Even that heck of an experience. Many people that are listening, that obviously the incarcerated individuals recently released,
Mhm.
because this will also be on YouTube, or supporting someone who's trying to rebuild. How did you find your purpose after that? You had a heck of a difficult season there in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did that give you more fuel to continue on?
It did. I always say that we're 100% successful at overcoming every day that we thought would take us out, right? Like every day that we thought this is going to be it, I can't do it. This is it. This is the end of the line for me. Well, that was yesterday, and here we are, right? So it's very important to find mission and purpose, right? And I would encourage folks that get out to help others who may be in the same boat. Like, for example, like folks who are on their way to prison, or maybe have a report date. I talk to folks like that all the time. I have a lot of people that reach out to me, on social media and things, send me messages about, what to expect. What's it like? How do you manage a brand new marriage, or how do you manage, a relationship with your kids, and uh, and I think, who better to share that knowledge than someone who has lived it. I will die on a hill to say that lived experience is much more impactful than theory, right? And so I chose to take my lived experience, and I could have done, like you said, I could have done, two things. And there were times where I was like, you know what, I'm done with it. But that was only a minute. That was a feeling. That was that helpless feeling. But then realizing that, you learn so much, or so much resilience that you can teach the world, right? And don't waste that experience, even if it wasn't great, even if it was challenging. Don't waste it, right? Use that to your advantage. Use that to help someone else, and then maybe they help someone else, and maybe you create this legacy of helping people through your story. And our testimony is our most our most powerful weapon against hardship in the world, right? Because our testimony is the only thing we really own. It's what we've lived and what we went through. Don't silence that. Use that. And the most healing thing, Tatiana, for me, it was to be able to sit in front of someone who was struggling like me, and have a conversation, and be able to offer something that made their day a little better. And it just does something to you. You helping others, you'll get more than you'll ever give. And so I would just encourage people getting out to find their purpose, find your mission. What is it that makes you tick? What is it that you're passionate about? And use even the bad things for good.
Okay. What advice would you give someone who feels like their past disqualifies them?
Um, I would say that that's a choice. You know, Again, we're not defined by who we were. We're defined by who we can become. Right. And just about anybody that's ever done anything really great in this world, if you read their story, there's been some issue there, right? There's been some trouble of some sort, right? It doesn't necessarily mean legal, but oftentimes it is. But it could be, It could be a number of things. But I would say that, you know, where we've been doesn't have to be where we go. But of course, that's a choice you have to make. And sometimes, we get comfortable being uncomfortable. So sometimes it feels better to be in that position because at least you understand it rather than going into something that maybe you're still trying to figure out. But I would encourage you to the times that you want to quit, you need to keep moving forward the most. But you absolutely can change the trajectory of your life. So it doesn't mean whether you've done it 1 year or whether you've done 20 or 30 years, you can absolutely still be productive and successful in this world if you want to.
I agree. How can someone begin rebuilding when they do not know where to start?
Well, I've always had this theory to surround myself with people smarter than me. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I live by that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, this morning, so no, twice a week, I meet with people who are, have been successful in life in different genres of life. But some of them are 70 and 80 years old, right? And they sometimes they want to meet at Cracker Barrel here. I don't know if you have Cracker Barrels in Texas, but
We do.
yeah, I don't really like it, but they want to meet there, and so I'm the one who needs the information, so I go, right? So I go there, and it's about having humility. It's about understanding and recognizing that you don't know everything, and to put ego aside and learn from people who have a track record of being successful. Mentorship is important. It's critical, and whether you're 50 or you're 25, it's important to have good mentorship. So I would say surround yourself with the people that you want to become, right, in your own individual way. And what else I've learned is those people who are successful love to teach others how they become successful, and so you generally won't have a problem finding somebody who wants to sit down with you and tell you how they did it. And I would say that's a real good start coming out of the gate.
I agree. I
Yeah.
always tell our vets over here, the ones that we're in communication with, to give back to their
Mm.
unit.
Yeah.
You guys got to give some community service. You guys got to give back.
Mm.
And I think it's because it's my love language. It's
Yeah.
it just makes me happy. It really just fulfills me. Do you think that service to others is a part of healing?
Oh, 1000%. If somebody only gave me one option as a gateway to healing, I'd say service. Serving other people. I mean, it was. I thought, in my opinion, I'm like, I think I found the cure, right? And so one example I use is like, and unfortunately we don't have that yet, but I hope soon that we have the cure to cancer. But when that cure comes, everybody that has cancer is going to run to that, right? Why? Because it helps. And the service is like that for me. And I think it's especially for veterans, it's ingrained in us. I mean, that's what we did. We served, right? Selfless service is one of the Army values, and it's about putting others over ourselves. And so, and they have a history of doing that. So why not get back in the saddle? No pun intended, right? And to do that again in a way that fulfills you. Because again, we could be having a terrible day, but nothing makes me feel better than to get a phone call or text message where it says, I talked to my daughter today for the first time in 5 years, and we're going to meet for lunch. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, how in the world could that make you sad, right? And so, I would just encourage people. Services is priority. A lot of people treat it as an option, but I would be willing to say that your life would be much more fulfilled to do it, which you just said. I mean, look what you're doing, right? Obviously, it's fulfilling for you, and you're passionate about it. It's clear in how you talk and how you explain it, and so thank you for that. And everybody's qualified to help somebody else. That's what's cool about it. You don't have to have a PhD, or you don't have to
I'm
any
not
kind
even a
of
vet.
yeah. See what I mean?
Yeah, no,
And
and thank you for your
yeah.
service, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. I want to encourage veterans because sometimes, veterans like to believe that if they're not a veteran, then they may not be able to help me. But some of the most help I've ever received come from people who never served in the military a day in their life, but they served in other capacities. And here's the deal: details may be different, but we don't have a monopoly over trauma. We don't have a monopoly over hardship, right? So I would just ask veterans to open their minds to people who may not have worn the uniform, but love you enough that they're willing to tell you how they did what they did, how they overcome what they overcome, and I'm sure you could take note of that and be successful.
Definitely. Definitely. If there's an incarcerated individual that wants to write you for
Yeah.
information, where can they write you at?
Yeah. So the best way to get in touch with me is they can email our organization directly. And that email address, and I'll say it slow, is just info@veteransclubinc.org. Um, and then what happens is the director there will forward those emails to me. And yeah, don't wait. Don't wait till you're out. And you don't have to be a Kentucky resident. I mean, we've helped people all over this country in different ways. It just seems like we obviously we help more people in the state that we're in, but I want to be clear that we're very much open to helping veterans in Texas, Alaska, California, New York, wherever they are.
Do you have a
So
PO
just
box?
what's that?
Do you
No,
have
we
a
have a
PO box?
no, we have a mailing address.
Yeah, yeah. Can you
Yeah,
give a mailing address? Because over
yeah.
here, if you don't connect with them through e-message, they can't connect you back.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, they can send us. It's 4621
Hmm.
Shelbyville Road.
Shelbyville.
Yes,
Hmm.
and that's in Louisville, Kentucky. I say it funny. It's really how we say it, but it's Louisville for most people. Louisville, Kentucky.
That's
For
what I was
yeah,
thinking.
yeah. I don't know why we say it how we do it, but it's 40207
Okay.
is yep,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah,
So today's conversation reminds me or reminds us that veterans are more than just a uniform.
mm,
It's more than the service record. It's more than the worst moments. There's fathers, there's mothers, there's sons, their daughters, leaders, and survivors as
yeah,
yourself, and the community members who deserve a pathway to healing, restoration, and most importantly, I believe, is purpose. Jeremy, I want to thank you for sharing your story.
yeah.
I appreciate connecting with you. I found him on TikTok, by the way, guys.
Yes.
Your heart, your mission, Veterans Club Inc. Your work reminds us that reentry is not just about returning home. It's
Mm,
about being received with dignity, equipped with support, and it's reminded to us that hope is still possible. Thank you
yes,
so
very much.
much. Anything you wanted to tell the incarcerated individuals?
Yeah, I just want to remind you all of how amazing you all are and can be, and that listen, if you don't think anyone out there cares, and I hope that's not the case, but if you ever feel like there isn't, I can tell you that I do. So always feel free to reach out to me, and even though we don't, I don't have to know you to love you. That's something that I always say, and now I can say that I know how it feels to be where you are. But there are people out there that care. There are people that don't even know you that care, that just really have a heart for folks who find themselves in the situation you're in, and it's just up to you to find those people. And I think if you're just open minded about what you want to accomplish, and you set your mind to it, that you can be successful. And this can all just be a memory one day, or a chapter in your book that you can reference, but you don't have to live it every day of your life going forward.
Definitely. And soon, hopefully, we'll have you down here.
Yeah. What
We'll
what
be
part
in
of Texas?
communication, Jeremy, definitely.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you for everybody for listening here at Texas Prisons Alliance Veterans Podcast. Texas Prisons Alliance, we believe that advocacy, accountability, reentry, and reform. We believe that every person has a story. Every story still has a purpose. Until next time, keep standing for hope, keep building bridges, and keep believing in transformation. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.